to countless FBI agents, and they would have zero access to rank and file. There's no appropriate contact between a political appointee who works in the West Wing and rank and file FBI agents. None, except the one that investigates you. So I remember thinking it was a lie at the time. Still, to see it detailed and called out as a lie in the Mueller report jolted me.
You know, you're in a very elite group of people who stood behind that podium and who've been to that rodeo. And you know, and you always knew that lying to the media was lying to the American people, and it just wasn't what you did. And you were considered and thoughtful in the things you said because you had to be. She is reckless. This is a part of the culture that the president has created there. And that culture is what Ralph Waldo Emerson had a great quote, that an institution is the shadow of a man. And she's in the shadow of Trump, and she is willing and comfortable telling those lies. And, and I'm sure she was uncomfortable knowing that would someday be in the report. I'm sure Trump is angry with her for having told the truth while she was under oath. But, it has diminished the credibility and the trust of this White House at every level. No one tells the truth, including the boss.
We set out a policy for this program, for our hour, never to air a clip of Sarah Huckabee Sanders because she debases that podium. And because I spent a little bit of time there, enough to be totally triggered by anyone, Kellyanne Conway, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, their deputies, anyone that debases that building. And somehow when they're on the road and they do it, it is what it is. But when I see them on Air Force One or on the South Lawn or in front of the podium, Kellyanne and her constant Fox appearances from the North Lawn, there is something so repulsive about being taxpayer-funded government employees who, if the country's attacked by anthrax or by terrorists, will have to go out and tell the American people what they should do next. They use their positions to lie.
Right. Their salaries are being paid by the American people. The building, that podium, being paid for by the American people as well. So.
Their BlackBerries and iPhones paid for by the American people.
And this is I remember the briefing that when Sarah repeated this, that she made this claim, the one that you really caught your attention. And I believe it was our colleague Michael Shear from the New York Times. He asked a follow-up question. He really went, really? Like, you've talked to all these FBI agents? Because it defined
no appropriate reason to have contact with the FBI.
It defined plausibility immediately. And remember, this is a tone that was set on day one. I was in the room when Sean Spicer walked in and proclaimed that Donald Trump's inauguration was the largest in history. He screamed at us in the room for reporting otherwise and then stormed out without taking questions. And since that moment, this is an administration, not all actors, not all the time, but this is an administration that certainly has had trouble with the truth. And you just hit upon the key point, is that they are speaking not just to the media. Can you lie to us? Can you lie to me? People do it all the time. But we're the representatives of the American public. And someday the American public has the right to know what is going on with their elected officials, for even on mundane events. But there will be that day where there is that national emergency. And the White House is going to need to be an arbiter of truth. They're going to need to be relied upon by the American people in a time of crisis. And right now, they have sowed so much doubt. There are a lot of Americans who won't believe a word they say.
I could go on for 40 minutes. I won't. I want to read one more section from the report. Mike Flynn directed Katie McFarland to call the Washington Post columnist to inform him that no discussion of sanctions had occurred. McFarland recalled that Flynn, former national security advisor, said words to the effect of, quote, "I want to kill the story." McFarland made the call as Flynn had requested, although she knew she was providing false information. And the Washington Post updated the column to reflect a Trump official had denied that Flynn and Kislyak discussed sanctions. Aaron Blake, Flynn pleaded guilty to lying about this conversation, but it didn't stop him from asking an aide to call in a lie. And I made this observation as when I read this section, that we have not yet, you haven't adjusted, Jonathan Lemire hasn't adjusted, none of us has adjusted yet to the asymmetrical task of earnestly going about our business covering liars.
I think the KT McFarland example that you brought up is a really good one in understanding this report. There was another section where they discussed how the president tried to get her to come out and say that he had not directed Michael